When I finally saw my daughter for the first time in 19 years, she didn't say hi. She didn't ask who I was. She just looked me straight in the face and said, "I hate you for abandoning me when I needed you most." Then she screamed, loud enough for strangers to stop and stare. "Get away from me, you deadbeat." And just like that, after waiting almost 2 decades, I watched her walk out of my life again. But the next morning, everything changed. She came running to my house in tears, holding a box full of unopened letters. And in that moment, she finally learned the truth. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you're watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. They say you never forget the first time you meet your child. I suppose that's true, even when they're nearly grown, and the meeting happens 19 years too late, under a sky so gray it looked like God himself didn't want to be involved. I had rehearsed the moment in my head more times than I can count. Maybe she'd run to me with tears in her eyes. Maybe she'd look confused but curious. Maybe we'd have that awkward, gentle hug you give someone you've longed for but barely know. But I was wrong. So wrong. None of that happened. She looked me dead in the eye, her face contorted in rage, and with a voice that shook the quiet morning air, she said, "I hate you for abandoning me when I needed you most." For a moment, I thought she had the wrong person. I actually turned my head slightly, like maybe some other poor fool was standing behind me. But no, her finger was pointed right at me, her lips trembling, her eyes filled with a hurt I knew too well. Not because I caused it, but because I'd carried that same look in the mirror for years. And then, just as I was opening my mouth to say something, anything, she screamed, louder this time, like she wanted the whole neighborhood to hear, "Get away from me, you deadbeat." I didn't move at first. My hands stayed loose at my sides. I felt the stares from people passing by. I even heard someone gasp quietly. But I didn't say a word. I didn't run after her. I didn't defend myself. I just stood there, aching in every part of my soul. And when my legs finally remembered how to move, I turned and walked away quietly, the same way I'd learned to walk through this world for the past 19 years, softly, unnoticed, carrying a grief that nobody saw. The worst part? I didn't even blame her. I went home that night and sat in the dark. I didn't turn on the TV or pour myself a drink. I just sat. My living room clock ticked like it was mocking me. Every second a reminder of time lost, words unsaid, birthdays missed, school plays I never got to see. I stared at the picture on the mantel, her baby photo. She was just 6 when her mother took her and disappeared like a ghost in the night. One day, I kissed her goodnight. The next, her bed was empty and the closet was bare. Back then, my ex-wife, Danielle, told me she was taking Bella to visit her sick mother in Florida. Said it'd be a few weeks, maybe a month. I had no reason to doubt her. We weren't on the best terms, but she was still Bella's mom. I trusted that. But weeks turned into silence. Calls went unanswered. Mail came back undelivered. I contacted every relative I could think of. None of them knew anything. Or so they claimed. I only found out she'd moved in with her new lover 6 months later, through a mutual friend who saw it on Facebook. Danielle changed her last name online, posted smiling selfies with some tanned, muscle-headed guy, and captioned them, "New beginnings with my soulmate." Bella was in the background of some of the pictures, always smiling. But I could never tell if the smile reached her eyes. I fought. God, did I fight. I filed for custody, paid lawyers more than I could afford, sent money every month, child support like clockwork, even when I barely had enough to keep the lights on. Danielle made it impossible. She moved from state to state, dodging court summons like a criminal on the run. She'd call when she needed money, always with some sob story. My boyfriend left, and Bella needs school supplies. Or, we're behind on rent. Can you help just this once? I'd send what I could. Every time, I'd ask if I could talk to Bella. Just hear her voice. Just say hi. The answer was always no. She's busy. Or, she doesn't want to talk to you. Or worst of all, she doesn't even remember you anymore. So stop trying to force something that's dead. But something inside me refused to believe that. I kept sending cards, birthdays, Christmas, even random notes. I'd write, "If you ever want to find me, I'm here. I've never stopped loving you." I didn't know if she ever saw them, but I couldn't stop writing. It was the only way I could be her father from a distance. So when she finally contacted me, out of the blue, after all those years, I thought maybe, just maybe, the tide was turning. She emailed me. Just one line, "I want to meet." No warmth. No "Hi, Dad." But I didn't care. I dropped everything. Took the day off work. Put on my best shirt and showed up at the coffee shop she named. I walked in, scanning every table, heart pounding. And then I saw her. She looked just like Danielle when we first met. Same eyes, same sharp chin. But there was something softer in her that I remembered from holding her as a baby. For a second, she looked at me like she was trying to figure out who I was. I offered a gentle smile. That was when she got up, stood in front of me, and said those words like knives through my chest. "I hate you for abandoning me." I walked away that day, but a part of me stayed there, frozen, replaying the moment again and again. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even cry. I was too numb, like every nerve had shut down to protect me. The next morning, just as I was pouring coffee I didn't even want to drink, I heard frantic knocking at the door. I thought it might be a neighbor or maybe a package. But when I opened it, there she was. Bella, tears streaming down her face. Her hair, wild like she'd run here without brushing it. She was shaking. Her voice barely came out. "I'm sorry. Please. I need to talk to you." I stood frozen. This was the daughter who screamed at me less than 24 hours ago. The one who called me a deadbeat in public. And now she was crying on my doorstep, barefoot, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I stepped aside. "Come in," I said. She walked in slowly, like she wasn't sure she deserved to. I watched her take in the room. The photos on the wall, the letters on the coffee table, the birthday cards I never threw away. She looked like she'd stepped into a life she never knew she had. Then she broke. Completely. I didn't rush her. I didn't ask why she was here, or what had changed overnight. I just watched her sit down on the couch like it was foreign land beneath her. I could see her eyes scanning the room. The coffee table with unopened birthday cards she never got to read, the photo of us from when she was just a baby, the faded teddy bear I had refused to throw away even though it smelled like old wood and regret. She was holding back tears, swallowing hard. Her voice, when it finally came, was like a broken whisper. I found the letters. For a second, I wasn't sure what she meant. But then it clicked. The box. The box of letters I had written over the years. Birthday wishes, apologies, updates on my life. Even just simple thoughts like, "Today, I thought of the way you used to cling to my leg when you were scared." I had mailed every one of them. I never got a single response. Deep down, I had figured Danielle just threw them away. But I kept writing, like a man screaming into a cave, hoping one day the echo would find its way back. "I wasn't supposed to see them," Bella said, still not meeting my eyes. "Mom always told me you never cared, that you left, that you found someone else and forgot about us." The words landed hard, but they weren't surprising. Danielle had always been skilled in rewriting the truth when it suited her. But to hear it come from my daughter, to finally know the exact version of the lie she had been raised on, that was a new kind of heartbreak. "She said you left when I was 6, Bella continued. "Said you ran off with some woman from your job and never looked back. She said she begged you to stay, but you chose her over me." I let out a slow breath. Not because I was surprised, but because hearing it confirmed that everything I had feared all these years was true. Danielle didn't just leave with Bella. She assassinated my character to the one person whose opinion I cared about more than anything in the world. She said you used to hit things, that you were scary sometimes, that you couldn't hold down a job, that we were better off without you. I closed my eyes. "I never hit her," I said quietly, "and I never raised my voice in front of you. I worked 2 jobs to keep our house. She didn't leave because I was dangerous, Bella. She left because she was in love with someone else and wanted a fresh start without the baggage of a husband." Bella finally looked at me then, eyes wide. "Raw. I found pictures," she said. "Old ones. Of her and some guy I'd never seen before. There were dates on the back. They were together long before she left you." I nodded slowly. "He was a bartender. Met him while you were in preschool." She told me she was just working late. I believed her, Bella's jaw clenched. I could see her piecing the puzzle together, every lie cracking open to reveal truth underneath it. I didn't gloat. I didn't say I told you so. I just watched my daughter as she grieved the fantasy of the parent she thought she had. I hated you, she whispered. My whole life. I blamed you for everything. I thought you just didn't want me. God, that hit harder than any insult ever could. I've wanted you every day since the moment you were taken, I said. There's never been a day I didn't wonder what you were doing, or if you were happy. Every birthday, I lit a candle. Every Christmas, I put out a stocking just in case. Every time the phone rang, I prayed it would be you. She broke again. This time, she sobbed into her hands, shoulders shaking. I walked to the bookshelf and pulled down the box she'd seen the night before. I handed it to her. Open it, I said. She looked through the envelopes slowly, hands trembling. Some were decorated with stickers. Others had little sketches I'd drawn on the corners. Just dumb stuff. Stars, hearts, smiley faces. She opened one from when she turned 10. I had written, "Happy birthday, baby girl. I hope today is filled with cake and giggles and everything you love. I miss you so much. If you ever want to talk to me, I'm still at the same address. I always will be. Love, Dad." She wept so hard she couldn't breathe. The memories came flooding back then. Mine, not hers. The day Danielle left. It was raining. Bella had her favorite pink raincoat on. She was holding her stuffed bunny, and Danielle told her they were going to visit Grandma. Pack for a few days, she said with that fake smile she always used when she was lying. I kissed Bella on the forehead. Be good, I told her. I'll see you in a few days. I didn't know that would be the last time for 19 years. When a week passed and I hadn't heard from them, I started calling. Danielle's number was disconnected. Her email bounced. I drove to her mother's house. No one answered the door. Eventually, I called the police. They said it wasn't kidnapping. Said she was the mother and had a right to take her. I tried lawyers. I tried everything. But every time I got close to finding her, she moved again. I was left behind with silence and court orders that meant nothing. Bella wiped her face and looked up. Why didn't you fight harder? I felt that one, right in the gut. But I answered honestly. I did. But fighting someone who plays dirty when you're broke and grieving, it's like trying to climb a burning rope. Every time I got close, she made sure to cut me down. She moved across state lines, filed for full custody in courts I couldn't even reach without a car. She lied on affidavits. And when I called child services to report her blocking visitation, they said there wasn't enough to go on. I paused. I almost went broke. But I still sent the money. Always. Bella nodded slowly. I found the bank slips. You sent child support until last year. I still would have, I said. But when she changed her number again, I had no idea where you were. I kept waiting for you to turn 18 and maybe come looking. I almost didn't, she whispered. And I almost gave up, I replied. She stayed that night. I let her sleep in the guest room, even though I didn't sleep much myself. My heart was too full, too confused, too raw. The next morning, she came into the kitchen, sat across from me, and said, I left her. I blinked. What do you mean? I told Mom I was done. After I found the box, I confronted her. She didn't even try to deny it at first. Just said you weren't worth knowing. I told her if she lied about you, what else did she lie about? She started screaming, called me ungrateful, said I was choosing a deadbeat over the woman who raised me. So I packed my stuff. I felt my chest tighten. Where are you staying? She looked down. Nowhere. I came straight here. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said the words I'd waited nearly 2 decades to say. You're home. It's a strange thing, watching your daughter make toast in your kitchen like it's just any morning, like we haven't spent nearly 2 decades living parallel lives. She was quiet, but it wasn't the kind of silence that begged to be filled. It was the kind that held weight, like she was carrying years of rewired beliefs on her back, trying to sort which parts were true, which were lies, and which were too tangled to ever fully understand. She didn't ask for butter, didn't ask for jam, just sat at the kitchen table nibbling dry bread, eyes locked on a single spot on the floor like it held the answer to a question she was afraid to say out loud. I sat across from her, sipping coffee that had gone cold. My chest ached with the kind of tenderness only a parent can feel, the need to fix everything, knowing full well you can't. I wanted to reach out, to smooth her hair back like I did when she was 5 and had a nightmare. But she wasn't 5 anymore. She was a woman, and she'd come to me broken in ways I couldn't glue back together with just a hug and a bedtime story. Finally, she looked up. I think I hate her. I stayed silent. That word, hate, carried a different kind of poison when spoken about a parent. And even though Danielle had done unspeakable damage, I knew what kind of emotional warfare it took to raise that kind of word against your own mother. I mean, she said, voice trembling, I know that's wrong. She raised me. She fed me. She held me when I cried. But I keep going back to all the times I asked about you. The times I begged her to tell me the truth. I remember being 8 years old and writing a letter to you and asking her to mail it. She told me you'd moved away and didn't want contact. I believed her. She pushed her plate away. I believed everything. I nodded slowly. I don't blame you, Bella. You were a child. You believed your mother. That's what kids do. But I didn't stop when I got older, she said, sharper now, like her anger was turning inward. I never questioned anything. I started parroting her lies like they were gospel. Anytime someone asked about you, I'd tell them you were some selfish jerk who bailed on us. I even said it online once on a post. A rant. I told the world my dad abandoned me and that I hoped he rotted. I felt that. Not because I hadn't read it. I had. But because now I could see the shame she carried for having written it. At the time, it had gutted me. It was during the height of social media, and some mutual acquaintance had forwarded it to me. I remembered reading those words and closing my laptop with shaking hands. But I never replied. I never defended myself. I figured if she needed a villain, I could carry that weight for her. You were doing what you thought was right, I said gently. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I saw the post yesterday, after I found your letters. I went back through everything I've ever said about you. I was disgusting. I was cruel. And now, I said, you know the truth. That matters more than any post you can delete. She nodded, then paused. You didn't have a lover? I couldn't help but chuckle, just a little, out of disbelief. No. God, no. I barely dated after she left. I was too focused on trying to find you. And even when I tried to move on later, it just never felt right. Like my life had stopped at 29, and the rest of me was just going through the motions. Bella blinked like she was trying to absorb every version of me that didn't match the picture her mother painted. And the money? She asked. You really sent all that? I kept every receipt. I said. I can show you. I paid child support on time, even when I was late on rent. She used to call me for extra cash and say it was for you. So I gave it, even when I had doubts. Because I figured maybe, just maybe, it meant you'd get a new pair of shoes or eat something better that week. She stared at me. I always wondered why we had new things randomly, then went back to struggling. She said it was from her ex. But now I'm thinking it was you. Probably was, I muttered. The emotional fog settled between us like smoke from a fire that had burned too long. Then, unexpectedly, Bella asked, Can I see my old room? I paused. It wasn't really a room anymore. Over the years, I'd left it mostly untouched out of some desperate need to keep her presence alive. But eventually, it became a storage space. The crib was replaced by a futon. The wallpaper peeled. Her toys were boxed up and shoved into a corner. But I never threw any of it away. I led her to the door and opened it. Dust particles danced in the light as she stepped inside, slowly, reverently. She picked up her old plush bunny off the shelf. I named him Pancake, she whispered. I used to cry when he wasn't in bed with me. I smiled softly. You used to carry him everywhere. Grocery store, church, even the bathroom. She sat on the edge of the futon, clutching the toy like it was the last thread of something good from her childhood. I had a dream once, she said, that you were standing in a park, waiting for me. I tried to run to you, but every time I got close, the ground stretched longer, and I could never reach you. I swallowed hard. That's how it felt on my end, too. She looked up at me. I think I'm angry at myself. Why? For not seeing it sooner. For believing her. For screaming at you yesterday. I walked to the edge of the room and crouched in front of her. Bella, you hurt me. You did. I won't lie. But I understand why you did. That doesn't erase it. But it puts it in a place I can forgive. She broke again. Tears, softer this time. She leaned into me, and for the first time in 19 years, I held my daughter, Not in a hospital, not in a memory, but right here. Real. Breathing. Trembling. And mine. I didn't expect her to go back there. I thought she'd stay with me for a few days, maybe sort things out slowly, piece by piece. But Bella had fire in her, more than I ever realized. The moment she finished her coffee, she stood up and said, I need to talk to her. Face to face. I want her to say it. Out loud. I asked her if she was sure. She nodded once, hard. If I don't go now, I'll carry this weight forever. I didn't stop her. I only said, call me if you need anything. And if it gets ugly, walk away. You don't owe her a fight. But I think she did owe herself one. She told me later what happened, though her voice shook when she did. She went back to the apartment she'd shared with her mother for most of her life. The door was still unlocked from when she stormed out the night before. She walked in and found Danielle sitting on the couch, TV on, legs crossed like nothing had happened. You came crawling back? Danielle said with a smirk. Had enough of your little tantrum. Bella didn't yell, not at first. She stood there, calm, hands clenched at her sides. I read every single letter, every card, every receipt, every lie you ever told just caught up to you. Danielle's face dropped, just slightly. Her mouth opened, then shut. A flicker of panic blinked across her face before the arrogance returned. Those letters meant nothing. He was trying to manipulate you. No, Bella said, voice cracking. You were the one manipulating me. You lied about everything. You told me he abandoned me, that he was some cheating loser who didn't want me. You made me hate my own father. I protected you, Danielle snapped. You were a child. I gave you a life. I kept you from a man who was too weak to fight for you. Bella laughed, a cold, bitter sound I'd never imagined coming from her. He did fight. I saw the court filings, the legal letters. I saw the bank statements. He sent money every month. He begged to see me. You moved states to dodge him. You poisoned me against him because you were bitter. And now I'm supposed to just forget it? Danielle stood up, fists clenched. You think he would have made a good father? He was broke. He was pathetic. You think he could have raised you better than me? I think, Bella said quietly, that I should have had the chance to find out for myself. That shut her up. I remember asking you about him when I was a kid, Bella continued, tears spilling over now. I remember crying and begging to know why he didn't love me. And you let me sit in that pain. You watched me suffer just so you could feel like the good guy. Danielle tried to speak again, but Bella cut her off. You said he never sent anything. You told me he forgot my birthdays, that he never even asked about me. You said he had a new family and didn't want me anymore. Danielle's face twisted. Well, what difference does it make now? It makes all the difference, Bella snapped. Because I stood in front of that man and screamed in his face. I called him a deadbeat. I told him to get away from me, and he still opened his door when I came back. He still held me like I was the same little girl he lost. And you know what? I believe him, not you. Danielle stepped back, arms crossed like a shield. So what? You're just gonna leave me? After everything I gave up for you? Bella stared at her. You didn't give up anything. You took him from me. You took my truth. You took years I'll never get back. Danielle tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest, Bella said. Something you haven't been in 19 years. She turned and walked to her room, grabbed her last few things, stuffed them in a bag, and walked back out. Danielle didn't stop her. She just sat down slowly, like someone who'd finally been exposed in front of a mirror and didn't like what she saw. When Bella returned to my house, her eyes were red and puffy, but there was something clear in them, like fog that had finally lifted. She didn't say much at first, just handed me her bag and asked if I could help bring it inside. I did, not because I needed to, but because it meant something. She was here, not as a guest, but as someone choosing to stay. We sat on the porch later, the sky streaked with pink and gold. She hugged her knees to her chest and stared out at the yard. I burned every letter you ever wrote, she said suddenly. Or at least, I thought I did. Every year on my birthday, I'd light a candle and tell myself you didn't deserve to celebrate me, that you didn't care. She paused. I didn't realize I was the one mourning. My throat tightened. You couldn't have known. She looked at me then, really looked. I want to rebuild something, but I know I don't deserve it right away. I leaned back in my chair. You don't have to earn my love, Bella. You already had it. You always did. But I need to earn your trust, she said. And I want to. If you'll let me. There it was, accountability. Not just regret, but the willingness to take ownership of her own words. And that mattered more than any apology could. I can do that, I said. And we sat in silence, not because there was nothing left to say, but because we were finally free to just be, with no lies between us. I woke up before the sun the next morning, the house still and unfamiliar in its silence. Funny, isn't it? You can live in a place for 20 years, but one shift, one person stepping back into your life, makes everything feel new again. I walked into the hallway and stopped outside the door that used to be Bella's room. It was cracked open, just enough for me to see her curled up on the futon, tangled in a too-thin blanket she probably grabbed in a hurry the night before. I didn't wake her. I just stood there for a moment and let it sink in. She was here. My daughter, who once looked at me with such fire in her eyes and called me a deadbeat in the middle of a coffee shop, was now asleep under my roof. And I didn't know what came next. Because love, I had plenty of that. I never stopped loving her. But trust? Trust had to be rebuilt. And forgiveness, real forgiveness, wasn't just about moving on. It was about facing the damage. The wreckage of 19 years of silence and deception wasn't going to clear itself. She joined me in the kitchen a few hours later, barefoot and quiet, wearing an old hoodie I hadn't seen in years, one she'd left behind when she was 6. Somehow it still fit. I didn't sleep much, she said. Me neither, I admitted. We sat at the kitchen table, sipping from mismatched mugs. She looked older than 19 in that moment, not in the way her face looked, but in her expression, like life had aged her fast, like truth had pressed on her heart until it wrinkled. There's something I need to ask you, she said softly. I nodded. Anything. She hesitated. When I said those things to you at the coffee shop, when I screamed in your face, her voice broke. Why didn't you yell back? Why didn't you defend yourself? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the grain of the table. Because you wouldn't have heard me. You weren't ready to believe anything I said. You already had your mind made up. And I didn't want our first real conversation to be a fight. Her voice cracked. I called you a deadbeat. I remember. She started crying then. Not loud, not dramatic. Just soft, steady tears that fell down her cheeks as she covered her mouth. I'm so sorry. I nodded slowly. You hurt me. Badly. But I know those words didn't come from nowhere. Someone put them there. And I can't expect you to unlearn all of it overnight. She wiped her face. It's like, I thought I had this story of my life, you know? And now it's all broken. I don't know what was real and what was just a script Mom fed me. That's the hardest part, I said. Realizing your own memories might not even be yours. We sat in that silence for a long time. Then she asked, did you ever hate me? That one knocked the wind out of me. Never, I said firmly. I hated the situation. I hated what your mother did. I hated how powerless I felt. But I never, not for a second, hated you. She nodded, taking that in like medicine that stung before it soothed. Even after what I said to you. I looked her straight in the eye. You can't undo it. Those words, you meant them when you said them, even if you regret it now. And they left a mark. But here's the truth. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's deciding the relationship matters more than the scar. Later that afternoon, we went through the letters together. All of them. I let her open them at her own pace. She read the one I wrote when she turned 13. It had a drawing of a birthday cake and a note that said, I don't know if this will reach you, but today, you're officially a teenager. I imagine you're taller now. Smarter. Maybe you have your mom's eyes. Maybe you have my stubbornness. I hope you're happy. I hope you're safe. I love you more than you'll ever know. She read it twice. Then she hugged the letter to her chest and said, I wish I'd known. I wish you had too, I replied. She paused. Did you ever write angry letters? I laughed under my breath. Plenty, but I never mailed them. They're in a drawer. Want to read one? She smirked. Yeah. I went to my room and came back with a folder. Inside were letters I wrote in the darkest moments, when I felt abandoned too. Letters full of hurt, frustration, even resentment. But I never sent them. I wrote them to survive the silence. She read one where I'd written, maybe you hate me now. Maybe your mother told you I never wanted you. Maybe one day you'll look me up and spit in my face. But I'll take it. I'll take all of it. Just don't disappear forever." She didn't say anything, just folded the letter gently and slid it back in the folder. "I want to write back," she said. "Not just to apologize, but to tell you what I've been through. The real version." I nodded. "Then write. And when you're ready, I'll read every word." That night, I heard her crying softly in her room. Not the kind of crying that needed comfort, but the kind that needed release. The kind that came when truth settled deep and wouldn't let you sleep. I stood outside her door again, hand on the frame, torn between walking in or letting her have the space. Then I heard her whisper, just barely, "I'm sorry, Dad." It wasn't for me to respond to, not then. But I whispered back anyway, "I hear you." A week passed before she handed me the envelope. It was folded neatly, her name printed in the corner in block letters, like she was afraid cursive would betray her nerves. I could tell she'd taken her time. There were crease marks from where she'd opened and resealed it, probably second-guessing herself over and over. But that morning, without a word, she slid it across the table while I was buttering toast and whispered, "Read it when I'm not here." I waited until the house was empty. She'd gone for a walk, something she'd started doing every morning since she moved in, part habit, part therapy. And when I opened the envelope, I braced myself. I didn't know what I'd find. Guilt, sorrow, maybe even fresh pain. What I found was truth, raw, fragile, and somehow heavier than anything I'd carried before. "Dear Dad, I don't know how to begin this without saying I'm sorry again, but I also know that doesn't fix everything. So this isn't just an apology. It's a confession, and maybe a thank you, too. I spent 19 years believing a version of you that never existed. And I can't tell you how that feels, not just as your daughter, but as a person. I feel like someone stole my story and replaced it with a lie. I've had to grieve two things at once. The dad I thought abandoned me, and the years I lost hating the one who never did. I remember being 10, asking Mom why you didn't come to my dance recital. She told me you didn't care, that you never asked. But when I found your letters, I saw one that said, "I wish I could see your dance recital. I hope you know how proud I am of you, even from far away." I cried for hours after reading that, because it felt like I'd missed my whole childhood in one moment. You never stopped being my dad. I just didn't know it. And now I do. I know it every time you leave the porch light on when I walk late. Every time you let me cry without asking me to explain. Every time you remember my favorite breakfast, even though I haven't eaten it since I was 6. I'm angry. At Mom. At myself. Even at time. But not at you anymore. Never again. You didn't abandon me. You were stolen from me. I hope this letter finds the version of you who wrote all those cards. The one who never stopped hoping. Because I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere. Love. Bella. I folded the letter with shaking hands. There was no fixing the past. No going back to school plays or birthdays or scraped knees I didn't get to kiss better. But there was something sacred about seeing my daughter reclaim the truth. About watching her take a pen and rewrite her own story. This time with honesty and grief and ownership. I placed her letter in the same box where I'd kept mine. That night, she came home and sat beside me on the porch. Neither of us said anything for a long while. We just watched the sky fade into indigo, the cicadas humming a song neither of us understood, but somehow felt like home. Then she reached over and slipped her hand into mine. "I meant every word," she said. "I know," I replied. We started small. I taught her how to make her favorite pancakes again. She told me about her life. Friends, breakups, the way she used to sneak out and dance barefoot in the rain when her mother was asleep. I told her about the time I almost sold the house just to start over, but kept it because some part of me believed she'd come back. We didn't try to act like nothing happened. That would have been dishonest. Instead, we worked with what we had, a wounded bond, honest conversations, and time. She brought up her mother sometimes, but not with nostalgia. More like someone reflecting on a closed door. "I don't hate her," she said once, "but I can't go back there. I don't know who she really is anymore." "You don't have to hate her," I told her. "You just have to protect your peace now." She nodded. "I'm trying." One evening, I gave her back the first card I ever wrote, the one from her 7th birthday that never made it to her. It was silly, written in crayon, with stick figures of us holding hands and a tiny dog beside us, even though we never had one. She read it and smiled. I think I'm ready to write you a new one, she said. A birthday card for the dad I finally got to meet. I smiled too, but gently. Just don't make me cry this time. No promises, she smirked. Final reflection. I used to think love was about time, about being there for every moment, every milestone. But now I know the truth. Love is what survives in spite of time. It's what waits patiently through silence and forgives not just others, but yourself, too. Bella came back to me older, hurt, and carrying a lifetime of confusion. But she came back, and while her words left scars, so did mine, just ones I wrote on paper instead of shouting in person. Now, we carry those scars together, not as wounds, but as proof that we survived it. And we're still writing. Sometimes, the hardest truths are the ones we've believed the longest. If this story touched you, if you've ever been lied to by someone you trusted, or had to repair a bond you thought was gone forever, tell us in the comments. Your story matters, and so does your healing. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, where truth breaks the silence and love chooses to stay.